Good evening, and welcome to Community Focus. I'm your host, Sarah. Tonight, we are discussing a question that many cities around the world have to face. The question is, should the public pay for major sporting events, like the Olympics or the World Cup? It's a topic with strong opinions on both sides, and it affects how our public money is spent. Here to discuss this with us are two expert guests. First, we have David, a city council member who has been a strong supporter of bringing large events to our city. He believes these events are a great investment for our community. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm happy to be here to talk about this exciting topic.
And on the other side of the issue, we have Maria, a respected economist and a community activist. She believes that public money should be directed towards other, more essential services. Welcome to the show, Maria.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. It's an important conversation.
Our format for tonight will be simple. We will begin with opening statements from both David and Maria. After that, we will have a discussion where they can respond to each other's points. Finally, they will each have a chance to make a closing remark. So let's begin. David, we'll start with you. You have the floor.
Thank you, Sarah. I want to start by talking about something we all love to feel: pride in our city. When a major sporting event comes to town, it brings us all together. We see flags in the windows, people wearing our city's colors, and a shared sense of excitement. It creates a positive atmosphere that you can feel everywhere. This unity and community spirit are valuable, and they last long after the final game is played. But it's not just about feelings. Let's talk about the economic benefits, which are very real. These events attract thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of tourists. These visitors stay in our hotels, they eat in our restaurants, they shop in our local stores, and they use local transport. All of that spending directly supports our local businesses and creates jobs. We're talking about jobs in hospitality, in retail, and in event management. These are real jobs for real people in our city. Furthermore, to host a major event, a city must invest in its infrastructure. This is one of the most important long-term benefits. We often build new stadiums or arenas, but it's more than that. We improve our public transport systems, like building a new metro line or expanding bus routes. We improve our airports and our roads. These are not temporary things for the event. They are permanent upgrades that every resident can use for years and decades to come. Think of it as an investment that pays us back every single day. Finally, hosting a major event puts our city on the world stage. We are broadcast to billions of people. This global attention is publicity that money can't buy. It shows the world that our city is a modern, capable, and welcoming place. This attracts future investment, more tourists, and talented people who might want to live and work here. So yes, the public contributes, but the public gets back so much more in return.
Thank you, David, for that clear opening statement. Maria, let's now hear your perspective. Why do you believe public funding for these events is not the right choice?
Thank you. David speaks about pride and investment, and those are nice words. But I want to talk about the reality of the numbers and priorities. The first and most important point is the incredibly high cost for taxpayers. These events are not just expensive, they are famous for going far over budget. A city might plan to spend $1 billion, but the final cost is often 2 or 3 times higher. This extra money has to come from somewhere. It comes from the pockets of ordinary people, through their taxes. My second point is about fairness. David talks about benefits, but who gets the profits? The vast majority of the money from ticket sales, broadcasting rights, and corporate sponsorships goes to private, international organizations like the IOC or FIFA. However, if the event loses money, which happens often, the city and its taxpayers are the ones who have to pay the debt. This is a classic case of private profits and public risk. It is not a fair deal for the public. This leads to my third, and perhaps most important point. Our priorities are wrong. When we choose to spend billions on a 2-week sporting event, we are also choosing not to spend that money on other things. Our schools need more teachers and better resources. Our hospitals have long waiting lists and need more beds and modern equipment. Our public roads are full of potholes, and many communities need better basic services. Is a new stadium more important than a new hospital wing? I believe the answer is no. Finally, let's look closely at the benefits that David mentioned. He talks about jobs, but many of these jobs are temporary. Construction jobs end when the stadium is built. Event staff are only employed for a few weeks. What happens to these workers after the crowds go home? The long-term employment impact is much smaller than we are told. And the new infrastructure, like stadiums, can become what we call white elephants. Huge, expensive buildings that are rarely used after the event and cost the public money to maintain for years. It's a promise of a bright future that often leaves a city with debt.
Thank you, Maria. You've both given us a lot to think about. Now let's move into our discussion section. I'd like to give you a chance to respond to each other directly. Maria, I want to start with you. David spoke passionately about the economic benefits from tourism and new jobs. You've said these benefits are not as good as they sound. Can you explain why you believe the economic argument is weaker than supporters claim?
Of course. The economic arguments are always the main selling point, but they often don't hold up to close inspection. Let's take the jobs argument. Yes, jobs are created, but as I said, they are overwhelmingly temporary and often low wage. These are not stable careers that can support a family long term. Then there is the tourism money. It's true that tourists spend money, but where does it go? A large portion of that spending goes to large, international hotel and restaurant chains. The profits don't stay in the local community. They are sent back to a head office in another country. Also, these studies often forget to count the money that is lost. Many local residents actually leave the city during a major event to avoid the traffic and the crowds. So the money they would normally spend in local shops is gone. This is called the displacement effect. When you add up the real costs and subtract the exaggerated benefits, the picture is often a net financial loss for the city.
David, what is your response to that? Maria raises a strong point about priorities. She says this money is better spent on essential services like schools and hospitals. How can a city justify spending billions on a sports event when there are such fundamental needs that are not being met?
That is a very fair question, and I want to be clear. Schools, hospitals, and public safety are the most important responsibilities of any government. I completely agree with Maria on that. However, I believe it is a mistake to see this as an /or choice. A successful, forward-thinking city can and must do both. We should not have to choose between fixing today's problems and investing in tomorrow's growth. Hosting a major sporting event is a long-term economic strategy. By making the city a more attractive place for tourism and business, we grow our entire economy. A bigger, stronger economy means a larger tax base. In the long run, that provides more sustainable funding for our schools and hospitals. It's about making the whole economic pie bigger so that every service gets a bigger slice. If we only ever focus on patching up today's problems, we will never grow.
Maria, David suggests this is a long-term investment, not just a short-term cost. What's your response to that?
He calls it an investment, but I call it a gamble. A very risky gamble with public money. The promise of future tax money is just that, a promise. It is not a guarantee. There are many studies of past host cities that are still paying off debts 10 or 20 years later. Their economic pie did not grow. Their debt did. The needs of a child in an overcrowded classroom or a patient waiting for surgery are not promises. They are realities of today. We must address the certain needs of today before we gamble on the uncertain promises of tomorrow.
But Maria, if we never take any risks, we never make any progress. Great cities are not built by thinking small or only focusing on immediate problems. We have to be bold. We have to have a vision for what our city can become. These events are part of a larger vision of a dynamic global city.
A vision of a global city is wonderful, David, but a vision for whom? Is the vision a city with a beautiful, shiny stadium, but with citizens who can't afford their rent because the event drove up housing prices? A true vision for a city should be about improving the quality of life for all its residents, especially the most vulnerable. I'm not convinced these events achieve that.
I believe they do improve the quality of life. They bring new parks, better transport, and a sense of community. These are things that benefit everyone, from all walks of life.
This has been a very insightful discussion. But now, we must move to your closing statements. Maria, you have the floor first. Please summarize your position for our audience.
Thank you. I want to leave the audience with a simple thought. Public money should be used for the public good. The most essential public goods are quality education for our children, accessible health care for our families, and safe, well-maintained infrastructure for everyone. When we spend billions of taxpayer dollars on a major sporting event, we are making a choice. We are choosing to prioritize the profits of private international organizations over the pressing needs of our own communities. The financial risk of these massive projects is carried entirely by you, the taxpayer. Yet the financial rewards go elsewhere. I urge you to ask our leaders for responsible financial planning. Let's invest in the foundations of a strong community. Let's build a city that is defined not by a two-week party, but by the everyday well-being of its people.
Thank you, Maria. David, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. I want everyone watching to think about what makes a city great. A great city takes care of its people, absolutely. But it also dreams big. These major events are about more than just sports. They are an investment in our city's future. They are a catalyst for growth and development. The benefits are clear. A stronger and more diverse economy, new and improved infrastructure for all of us to use, and a powerful sense of community pride. Hosting these events tells the world that we are a confident, capable, and ambitious city. It brings opportunities that will benefit our children and grandchildren. Let's choose to be brave. Let's choose to build a future that is not only secure but also exciting. Let's invest in the projects that bring us together and move us forward.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Maria, for a very spirited and informative debate tonight. You have both presented strong arguments and given our audience a clear understanding of the two sides of this complex issue. The question of whether the public should fund major sporting events is ultimately a question about our values and our vision for the future. We hope this discussion has helped you to think about where you stand. Thank you for joining us on Community Focus. Good night.